Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. And we've come to your favorite part of the week. Yes, it's Friday. And so, of course, on the podcast, we every Friday do FOMO Friday, which means that we don't want to have you have that fear of missing out. So we bring you the stories of the week that you may or may not know about simply because you're not listening to propaganda media anymore. And of course, the big news of the week is that TSA is not requiring you to take off your shoes at airports anymore. Yeah, and all the TSA workers said thank you. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes our next article, though, and that is the IRS made clear its stance on churches endorsing political candidates in front of their congregations, saying in a court filing on Monday that houses of worship are free to push political candidates from the pulpit without fear of losing their tax-exempt status. This is huge. This is really big. And at risk of sounding like Trump, it definitely is a huge deal. And I can't emphasize this enough. This has been a major stumbling block for a lot of pastors for a long time. And here now, the IRS clarification came in a lawsuit court filing after two Texas churches and an association of Christian broadcasters sued, seeking an exemption from the ban on churches endorsing political candidates. The New York Times reported this, and they said while the plaintiffs sought a carve out for all non-profits, the IRS agreed in a court filing to allow churches to endorse candidates without penalty. According to the IRS, the Johnson Agreement, which has been a part of the U.S. tax code since like 1954 or something, does not prohibit a church from communicating with its congregants about its preferred political candidates, comparing such endorsements to a family discussion concerning candidates. And again, it seems reasonable to me. Quote, thus communications from a house of worship to its congregation in connection with religious services through its usual channels of communication on matters of faith do not run afoul of the Johnson Amendment as properly interpreted. That's what the agency wrote in the court filing. The IRS added that it has long refrained from enforcing the Johnson Amendment against churches for speech concerning electoral politics in the context of worship services. And for several years, pastors from around the country organized to test the tax code during Pulpit Freedom Sunday, reported by the Washington Post. The IRS only launched one investigation stemming from Pulpit Freedom Sunday, and the agency did not punish any churches. The IRS statement will be celebrated by many conservative Christians, of course, who have long viewed the prohibition on public endorsements as infringement upon their free speech. During his first term, President Donald Trump stated that he wanted to totally destroy, as he put it, the Johnson Amendment, which was introduced by then Senator Lyndon B. Johnson, the Democrat from Texas, back in 1954. Quote, I will get rid of and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak freely and without fear of retribution. Trump told Christians this at the National Prayer Breakfast in 2017. I will do that. Remember, for the Johnson Amendment to be repealed, Congress would have to take action on this. And proponents of the Johnson Amendment argue that the tax code is essential for guarding campaign finance laws. If the Johnson Amendment were repealed, some worry that political contributions could be funneled through tax-exempt 501c3 organizations, and the contributions could remain undisclosed and tax deductible. So again, just a really bit of great news this week coming out of the IRS. Not so great news, again, in the form of church news. And I found this piece by Isaac Willar, who he writes for the Daily Wire, and he wrote an opinion piece here, and he covers this, and I wanted to share it with you. It says, part of my job as a corporate engagement strategist, he's a corporate engagement strategist, is to read what's on corporate ballots at American public companies. Sounds like interesting reading. Reading these agendas reveals a stunning amount of blatantly anti-business proposals from corporate activist groups, from pushing Lockheed Martin to divest from Israel, to pressuring Starbucks to make oat milk free, to fight racism. He says, yes, that's real. But the other day, I came across perhaps one of the worst examples of corporate activism that's not only anti-business, but arguably directly at odds with values of the organization pushing the proposal. The proposal? Supporting employee access to abortion. The proponent? The largest Presbyterian denomination in America. The Presbyterian Church of USA, or PCUSA, is one of the biggest Presbyterian denominations in America, with more than 1 million members in its ranks, despite losing 500,000 members just last year alone. Earlier this year, the denomination shuttered its missionary program after almost 2 centuries, citing declining giving and church membership. But while the international mission field may be a lost cause for PCUSA, financial struggles haven't stopped them from pursuing other goals, like making sure American employees can still kill their unborn children. The PCUSA recently sponsored a shareholder proposal for supermarket chain Albertsons, urging the company to report on the effects of state-level restrictions on abortion in the wake of the Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization overturning Roe v. Wade. Even though the proposal came from an organization representing thousands of Christians, it's a masterclass in pro-abortion virtue signaling. Employees who cannot, this is a quote, employees who cannot access abortion when needed are 3 times more likely to leave the workforce and 4 times as likely to slip into poverty, unquote. Well, conveniently, the stats on unborn children go unmentioned here. PCUSA's demands are clear. Support abortion, or you're not acting in the best interest of your shareholders or employees. By the way, we're a church. PCUSA's slide into backwards orthodoxy, rejecting virtually every tenet of the historical Christian faith, is well documented. But from a business perspective, there is an important question to ask. Is supporting abortion access a funerary responsibility of publicly traded companies? In my view, he says, no. And there are at least 2 reasons. First, pining on divisive issues from abortion to gender-affirming care is rapidly becoming the reddest of flags to both American consumers and businesses seeking to maintain their bottom line. All one needs to do is look at Target, Bud Light, and Disney to see how politicized business becomes bad business. And second, and it's a wonder we don't talk about this more, companies that support abortion are literally supporting the killing of future customers. As my firm Boyer Research wrote in a recent SEC filing, urging shareholders to vote against the PCUSA proposal, quote, for a company like Albertsons, whose long-term success depends on serving growing families and communities, policies that suppress birth rates may ultimately shrink its future customer base, unquote. That takes us to another common pro-abortion talking point in corporate America, that businesses operating in pro-life states are going to see workers' shortages. That's by no means a definitive statement, and Albertsons is headquartered in Boise, Idaho. Through a pro-abortion lens, companies in red states should be deeply concerned about the exodus of workers leaving the pro-abortion states. The reality, Idaho is one of the fastest growing states in America, with many of those new residents coming from pro-abortion states such as California, Oregon, and Washington. It's almost as if population growth is more complicated than merely looking at a state's abortion stance. If anything, pro-life Idaho seems to be winning the population growth war. It's another reason that it simply makes no sense for a company like Albertsons to support abortion to appease corporate activists. Essentially, when those activists come from the church. This isn't Christian corporate engagement. No matter what the Dinthor stewards of the PCUSA may tell you, but it is instructive as to how Christian organizations drift left. While the PCUSA may be an infamously liberal denomination, that doesn't mean that abortion advocacy is what many of its tithing church members, many of whom are conservative, and positioning clerics want. You may be the most conservative PCUSA churchgoer alive, but they can still use your tithes to lobby for abortion. This should be a wake-up call for all Christians on just how bad things are getting in mainstream denominations. If you're part of a church or Christian ministry, it's time to get answers about who's stewarding your finances and what they're doing. How are you voting on these sorts of proposals? Christian organizations have fallen asleep at the wheel when it comes to their finances reflecting their faith. What can be done to remedy this particular situation? Well, a good place to start is making sure that your church is never in the arena advocating for the killing of unborn children. And right now, the PCUSA is doing just that. So again, I would echo the same thing. I would say that you need to know what your church and your church's denomination, if you have one, is doing. So many of these churches are losing members, and so what they're doing is they're trying to go after societal type of things in order to get people back into their church and into their pews, and that's not biblical. And they need to stay biblical. That is what they need to do. This is only going to hurt them, and it's absolutely it almost should be a crime. But moving on, and we move on to transgender stuff here. In a major move against the transgender medical industry, the Federal Trade Commission hosted a workshop Wednesday in Washington, D.C., examining the dangers of so-called gender-affirming care. The FTC's workshop, first reported by the Daily Wire in late May, has sparked the ire of leftist activists and Democrats who argue that the focus is inappropriate. Yet the academics, the commentators, the detransitioners, parents, and doctors present at the workshop argued that the transgender medical industry is pushing ideology upon American children who are not able to fully consent to these life-altering procedures. Quote, "The issue of gender medicine has shattered political boundaries," said Texas children's whistleblower Vanessa Silvage. Quote, "Not because of ideology, but because of conscience. This is not a partisan battle, but a battle of good and evil," unquote. At the beginning of the panel, FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson addressed the objection that transgender issues are outside the agency's purview. In fact, Ferguson said the FTC targets industries and entitles entities that lie or deceive the public, emphasizing that the FTC has a sworn duty to protect American citizens from false and misleading claims. He then immediately launched into the stories of detransitioners, young people who shared that they attempted gender transitions because they were told they were born in the wrong body, and that undergoing these surgeries and hormonal procedures would save them from suicide. Simon Amia Prince and his father, Garth Amia Price, shared how Simon was bullied as a child and attempted a social transition as a teenager, spurred on by the medical professionals who allegedly asked, would you rather have a dead son or a living daughter? Yeah, love that one. Detransitioner Claire Abernathy emotionally shared how medical professionals encouraged her to undergo transgender surgeries when she was too young to get a tattoo, too young to drive, and hadn't even learned algebra. Quote, it's not healthcare, she argued. It's blatant consumer fraud. Olivia Said, the mother of a girl who took her own life as she attempted a gender transition, broke down sobbing as she shared her child's story, saying through her tears, they treated her ideology, not her illness. I lost my 18-year-old daughter to gender ideology, she sobbed. And Ferguson, who moderated the panel, was clearly affected as he promised to the detransitioners and survivors that, quote, the FTC hears you. We hear all of you, and we want to understand how the law is being broken, unquote. During the workshop, the Justice Department's Chad Mizzle, he announced that the agency has issued nearly 20 subpoenas against clinics that are engaged in transgender transition attempts, noting that the Justice Department's investigations include healthcare fraud, false statements, and more. Mizell urged Americans to come forward if they could provide information about the deceptive practices in the transgender medical industry. And immediately following his announcement, Mizell introduced another panel of detransitioners and parents, including Prissa Mosley, Soren Aldaco, and Beth Bourne, Forrest Smith, Helen Spiesel Lee, and Gwen Turecki, individuals who emotionally shared their experiences as they navigated gender transition attempts or helped or lost a family member who attempted to transition themselves. Ferguson shared with the Daily Wire that this emphasis on personal stories was very purposeful. He said, quote, this is about people we hear from and the suffering that they have had to endure. And he said in a brief interview that as we learn more, it will be our normal enforcement process to figure out what's going on and who's been doing it and take appropriate action. As for the Justice Department's news, Ferguson said that he was thrilled, but not surprised. They have been moving at the speed of light, implementing the president's agenda, and they have a lot of talented lawyers. Quote, I'm thrilled because hearing from DOJ or the FTC, if you're a business, can be very intimidating, a very intimidating thing. And if you're breaking the law, a lot of times just hearing from the government like that can curb illegal behavior on its own. So I think it's great that DOJ is taking this seriously. The FTC will issue a request for information from the public in the coming days, Ferguson said. And as the Daily Wire previously reported, the FTC workshop is typically an indicator of an agency's intentions, given that the commission often holds such events before initiating legal action against an industry to gather information and collect evidence and solicit input from affected Americans. The chairman noted to the Daily Wire that he believes the best way to hold the transition or medical industry accountable for deceiving patients is to bring enforcement actions against violators, saying, quote, if people are making medical misstatements, sue them. But I think it's taking people to court if the law is being broken, rather than undertaking a 2-year-long rulemaking process following a lengthy litigation. He also brushed off backlash from the left and Democrats with concerns about the FTC's focus on the transgender medicine industry as well. Trump has made protecting children a priority, Ferguson pointed out. And he said it is the policy of the administration set by President Trump and naysayers on the left, naysaying everything, and that's just priced in. So again, some good news. The FTC is heading in the right direction here to try to shut down this fraud, basically, and it's being perpetrated on minors, on children, and it's just gross. Well, speaking of just gross, I guess you could put that in that category. We got to see a little bit more of the conspiracy. Former President Joe Biden's physician, Kevin O'Connor, pleaded the fifth during a closed-door deposition before Congress on Wednesday. The interview, part of an investigation into Biden's mental state and whether he authorized the use of AutoPen signatures for major executive actions, lasted roughly an hour on Capitol Hill. In a statement, O'Connor's attorneys told House Oversight Chairman James Comer and the other members of the Oversight Committee that their client would not violate his oath of confidentiality to his patients, including Biden. They also insisted that a pending Department of Justice criminal investigation left O'Connor no choice but to assert his Fifth Amendment rights. That's really telling. Comer, who had subpoenaed O'Connor to testify, confirmed that the witnesses declined to cooperate. And he said that the American people demand transparency, but Dr. O'Connor would rather conceal the truth, said Comer. Dr. O'Connor took the fifth when asked if he was told to lie about President Biden's health and whether he was fit to be president of the United States. Congress must assess legislative solutions to prevent such a cover-up from happening again, and we will continue to interview more Biden White House aides to get the answers the Americans deserve. Again, they're not like specifically in that question, they're not asking him to divulge anything about Biden. They're asking if he was asked to cover things up, right? And so that's not doctor-patient confidentiality there. And besides that, we're talking about a different situation here. But O'Connor's disposition took place after Trump waived his executive privilege. Much also happened for former White House Staff Secretary and Director of Domestic Policy Counsel Neera Tanden, who testified for several hours last month and denied there was an effort to cover up Biden's condition. Other former Biden aides are expected to testify before the House Oversight Committee in the coming weeks. Democrats have dismissed the White House Oversight Committee probe as baseless. Yeah, of course they have. Trump ordered a separate investigation into whether the aides properly used the AutoPen for executive actions in an effort to conceal Biden's health issues, suggesting there could be implications for the legality and validity of the presidential acts in question. Senate Republicans are also looking into Biden's mental fitness. So again, as I said earlier, this is a little bit different of a case because we're talking about the president of the United States and the communication with citizens of the United States. The doctor had no problem saying, "Oh wow, he's really good. I see him daily. Wow, he's awesome. There's nothing to any kind of allegations of mental illness or anything like that." I mean, in effect, he's divulging things he shouldn't be divulging about a patient, right? But now he wants to clam up. I mean, this is just another cog in the wheel of this cover up, and we'll stay on it for you. Okay. Kind of an interesting deal here as well. The FBI busted a multi-million-dollar marijuana trafficking scheme run by the Chinese nationals. The Justice Department said this on Tuesday, that 7 Chinese nationals were charged over an alleged marijuana conspiracy operation operating out of Massachusetts and Maine. Investigators said that the operation, which began in January of 2020, generated millions of dollars by distributing kilogram-sized quantities of marijuana in bulk. Quote, "This case pulls back the curtain on a sprawling criminal enterprise that exploited our immigration system and our communities for personal gain." This is what the U.S. Attorney Lee Foley said. These defendants allegedly turned quiet homes across the Northeast into hubs of criminal enterprise, building a multi-million-dollar back market operation off the backs of illegal workforce and using our neighborhoods as cover. That ends today, they said. They are all charged with conspiracy to manufacture, distribute, and possess with intent to distribute marijuana. And many face money laundering charges as well. Chen, who investigators say was the mastermind behind the operation, is also charged with smuggling aliens into the United States. FBI agent Ted Dox said that Chen, who lived in Braintree, Massachusetts, it's a city about 12 miles south of Boston, smuggled Chinese nationals over the Mexican border and forced them to work at marijuana grow houses to pay off the smuggling fees and get their passports back. In addition to Braintree, there were grow houses in the Massachusetts cities of Melrose and Greenfield. And in October of last year, investigators recovered more than $270,000 in cash, a Porsche, a multiple Chinese passports, and other identification documents inside a safe at the Chen's house in Braintree. Investigators also seized more than 109 kilograms of marijuana, nearly $200,000 in cash, and a $600,000 Rolex watch at the home of other alleged conspirators. There's also in celebrity news, I like to bring in at least one here. And you may know this guy. You may have at least seen him on TV. Bhagavan Doc Ankle. He first grew fame in the Netflix documentary Tiger King, while he was sentenced to 12 months in prison and was fined about $197,000 after pleading guilty to animal trafficking and money laundering. He's the one that owns Myrtle Beach Safari in South Carolina, and it's a wildlife preserve that offers personal encounters with endangered species such as tigers and cheetahs and things like that. It was through this zoo that Engel conducted illegal animal trafficking activities, which included illegally purchasing chimpanzee infants. And he was also involved in laundering over $500,000 in coordination with Andrew Omar Sawyer, which they were reportedly the proceeds from the operation to illegally smuggle aliens across the southern border. Is this getting to be a theme here? You know, smuggling people over the southern border. Well, let's end on a little bit of kind of lighter note, I guess. While China's men's soccer team hasn't really generated much excitement in recent years, humanoid robot teams have won over fans in Beijing, based more on AI technology involved than any athletic prowess shown. 4 teams of humanoid robots faced off in fully autonomous 3-on-3 soccer matches powered entirely by AI on Saturday night in China's capital in what was touted as the first in China and a preview for upcoming World Humanoid Robot Games. Oh, that ought to be interesting, right? And this is set to take place in Beijing, actually. According to the organizers, a key aspect of the match was that all the participant robots had to be fully autonomous, using AI-driven strategies without any human intervention or supervision. So you just see, you can Google some of the things on this, and you see these robots playing soccer and trying to play defense, trying to pass, and all that kind of stuff. There was 4 teams. They were given the robots, and then they had to do the AI for them, and so. Kind of interesting. That may be something that we see more of in the future. But I would love to hear from you on it. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. Maybe you have, some positive thoughts about that. Maybe not so positive. I don't know. Would love to hear from you on it. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Would love to have you go over to YouTube and give us a like over there. Share that. That would be great. And thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.